Good afternoon. Thank you for joining our webinar, providing an update on the work of the Fairfax County Attendance Task Force. My name is Jesse Ellis. I'm Prevention Manager in the Fairfax County Department of Neighborhood and Community Services, and I'm working with the task force to assemble an action plan to address chronic absenteeism in Fairfax County. A couple things about the webinar. All attendees have been placed in listen-only mode. You can ask questions at any time by using the chat function in your menu, and we'll address all questions at the end of the webinar. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be accessible online as soon as possible. We'll also post the slides online. In your webinar menu, you'll see a handouts option. You can actually download the slides from there in PDF form if you would like to keep them. There's also a handout that is the Tackling Truancy infographic from the Status Offense Reform Center, which we will be referencing in a couple minutes. Actually, we're going to start with it right now. Before we really get into discussing the developing action plan, I'd like to go back over some of what we know at a national level and some of what we covered in our earlier webinar. In the next couple of slides, I'll be focusing on information from this infographic that's titled Tackling Truancy from the Status Offense Reform Center, which is an initiative of the Vera Institute. Like I said, you can download the full document from your webinar menu. First, it's incredibly important to note the complex and multiple root causes of chronic absenteeism. For every student who misses school because he is chronically bullied, there's another who misses because she is made to stay home to care for her younger siblings. And there's another who cannot control her asthma, and there's another whose family does not place the same cultural importance on school attendance as others might. Note not just the many different causes of absenteeism, but also that they exist in different environments and settings, and they interact with each other. I doubt anyone on this call believes absenteeism is simply an issue of kids not wanting to go to school, but we all need to always keep in mind the myriad root causes that contribute to this problem. Second, the Status Offense Reform Center has identified 4 categories of promising practices that have been shown to be effective across the country. To be clear, this is not a menu of things that work, but necessary components of a comprehensive strategy. All 4 are needed in addressing the issue. In our last webinar, which is available online, if you'd like to see a recording of it, we went a little bit more in depth into these 4 practices, and they do form the basis, the foundation of our action plan that we are developing. So to review the approach that we're taking, we've developed an attendance task force that is composed mainly of individuals who expressed interest at or after the community dialogue that was jointly hosted by Fairfax County Government and Fairfax County Public Schools last fall. The task force has been formed to develop an action plan that is reflective of best practices and the issues that were identified locally at the community dialogue. The basic approach of the task force is twofold. First, looking to identify students at risk of or chronic absenteeism or who are chronically absent, identify the root cause of that individual's absenteeism and address that root cause or those root causes. This requires a tiered approach based on the level of intervention needed and the time at which we do intervene. But again, our focus is not on just identifying a root cause and trying to eliminate it countywide as much as we would like to do that, recognizing that there are so many different reasons that individuals are absent, and there are so many complex ways in which those root causes interact with each other, that to best be able to serve children, youth, and their families, we need to be able to intervene at that individual level and understand exactly what the barriers to attending school are for an individual. So that's basic idea number one to our approach. Basic idea of number two is really focused on the promotion of attendance uh, and educating families, students, the public, stakeholders about the importance of attendance and the policies, procedures, practices, and other things that people need to know to make sure that their students are attending school. So we're using the Status Offense Reform Center's promising practices as a framework for the developing action plan, and briefly put, those 4 promising practices relate to 4 different goals that we have in our action plan. The first is around providing a positive school climate. The second is around monitoring data. The third is ensuring that we're taking a multidisciplinary, multi-sector approach to addressing the issue. And the fourth is that tiered system of responses or of interventions for students who are absent. Reflected in both the composition of the task force and in the strategies that the task force has developed and is continuing to refine, is that this is not just the school's issue, and it's not just a court issue. Neither of those systems can adequately address this on their own. To really ensure that students are attending school and doing well, it will require a broad, multi-sector approach. We all have a role to play. The task force has been meeting over the past several months. Committees that were focused on policy, intervention, and access to resources have developed a set of strategies. And the co-chairs of these committees have been working over the last few weeks to be able to organize these strategies into a draft action plan, which will be made available soon. But at this point, we'd like to highlight the main components of this emerging action plan. Goal 1 of the plan is focused on promoting attendance through a positive school climate and supportive services. The strategies being developed under this goal include the following: implementation of a multimedia and multi-platform awareness campaign to educate students, parents, educators, and stakeholders about the importance and benefits of school attendance, and on policies and procedures regarding school attendance. A set of resources directed to parents, such as workshops, online videos, and tools for teachers to discuss attendance as a part of parent-teacher conferences. The full implementation of Return to Learn, which is a new FCPS protocol soon to be introduced really this fall, to support the transition back to school for students who miss significant time for any reason. Improved access to career and technical education, GED programs, and other alternative learning and non-traditional school programs. This includes more clear and prominent information on the programs and how to access them, and a review of the eligibility policies for such programs to determine how access could be improved for students with attendance problems. The incorporation of attendance messaging into school readiness initiatives, like the interdisciplinary and place-based neighborhood school readiness teams, is another strategy under this goal. So making sure that when students and families first start school, they're already thinking about the importance of attendance. For each strategy presented in the action plan, we will be listing specific actions that should be happening to ensure that the strategy is implemented through what we call an equity lens. That is, how can we ensure that each strategy is designed to reduce the achievement gap and other disparities in attendance and achievement based on race, ethnicity, disability, or other factor, and to ensure that the strategies do not have disproportionate impacts themselves. Within Goal 1, these actions to address equity include ensuring that publications and other messages are available in multiple languages and are culturally competent, reviewing data that is disaggregated so that disparities can be identified and monitored, and fully engaging communities, including parents and youth, in the development and implementation of messages. Goal 2 of the plan is focused on using data at the school and student levels to allow for early detection and intervention. The strategies being developed under this goal include the following: a standardized process for how attendance is reported and monitored. Consistency in what counts as an absence, how it's captured, and how it's monitored and analyzed will go a long way to helping make sure that interventions are better tailored to students and communities. We are advocating for the implementation of school attendance teams to review data, identify students at risk of chronic absenteeism, and identify trends and risk factors. Each high school has a staff member identified as a school probation officer. One strategy under Goal 2 is to clarify this person's role to serve a key function in supporting student attendance. And the final strategy is to ensure that the ongoing evaluation of FCPS school start time changes includes a review of the impacts on attendance. Within Goal 2, actions to address equity include ensuring that the collection and monitoring of disaggregated data. That is, not just looking at, for example, attendance rates for the county as a whole, but breaking it down by school, breaking it down by race, breaking it down by age, ethnicity, special education status, and so forth, so that we can identify populations that are at greater risk or that otherwise need more intensive interventions or more targeted interventions. Other actions to address equity under Goal 2 include engaging parent liaisons and other trusted individuals to ensure effective communication with parents and students. I'm sorry, I never changed the slide to Goal 2. I apologize about that. So I'll leave that up for just a second. But again, looking at standardized processes for how we capture and track attendance data, developing school attendance teams to regularly monitor data at a school level, revising the position description for the school probation officers, and evaluating impacts of the school bell changes. I'll remember to click this time. Goal 3 of the plan is focused on a multidisciplinary approach to working with youth and their families. The strategies being developed under this goal include the following: a consistent set of expectations and practices for how child, youth, and family serving organizations collaborate and consult with each other. Consistent policies and practices around how organizations share and obtain consent to share student information to better serve those students and plan interventions. And ensuring that ongoing updates and planning regarding attendance include family organizations such as PTAs and PTOs so that they can help with identifying trends and monitoring and implementing strategies to promote attendance. Within Goal 3, actions to address equity include ensuring language access and cultural competency, as well as the inclusion of community organizations and members that serve and represent diverse communities. Goal 4 of the plan is focused on ensuring a coordinated and tiered system of interventions to promote school attendance. The strategies being developed under this goal include the following: the development of resource lists of programs, services, and other kinds of opportunities that are localized and readily accessible, not just for staff, but for families and youth. The implementation of standard procedures for how schools will deal with prearranged absences, and standards for how students are supported when they miss school. A tiered system of interventions that we'll review in the coming slides. Again, remember that the goal is to identify the reason an individual is missing school and address that reason or barrier at the student and family level. The tiered system of interventions provides a roadmap for doing so. Within Goal 4, actions to address equity include ensuring language access and cultural competency, as well as the inclusion, again, of community organizations and members that serve and represent diverse communities. There are 3 tiers of interventions to guide how students are supported when they miss school. And we are proposing this tiered set of interventions based on a model developed by the national organization Attendance Works. Tier 1 is intended to promote and incentivize school attendance at a population level, looking at all students, and is aimed primarily at students who have missed fewer than 10% of school days. It will be recommended that each school develop a plan that includes supports and activities, such as school attendance teams to monitor data and trends, the use of positive behavior interventions and supports, and other approaches to foster a positive school climate. Awards and incentives for good and improved attendance. Notice it didn't say perfect attendance. We're really looking at good and improved attendance. Proactive sharing of available resources to support families, and messaging that promotes school attendance. Tier 2 interventions kick in for students who have missed 10 to 19% of their days of school. For these students, it is imperative to identify the root cause or causes of that student's absenteeism so that it can be addressed directly. Students should have an attendance plan, and a multi-agency team should be apprised of the situation to consider resources and supports. Interventions for students in Tier 2 could include participation in the Check and Connect program to monitor their attendance and support them with a school-based mentor. Screenings and referrals to outside services. Participation in positive programming such as Girls Circle and Boys Council. And additional incentives at the student level for improved attendance. Tier 3 interventions include more intensive plans and services for students who have missed 20% or more of school days or face considerable risk factors for chronic absenteeism. Their attendance plans should be reviewed, and they should be referred for a family resource meeting or a similar intervention, a structured intervention with the student, family, and representatives of child-serving agencies and organizations to provide a wraparound approach to service planning to meet the students' and families' needs. Tier 3 is characterized by more intensive supports and referrals than are seen in Tier 2. Only when these opportunities have been attempted and exhausted should a student be referred to juvenile court for diversion. Court involvement is much less effective than these other approaches and should be seen only as an avenue of last resort. However, that does not mean that juvenile court should not be involved earlier, as court staff are well positioned to serve as effective resources on multi-agency teams and in public messaging. After the community dialogue last fall, staff in the prevention unit of the county's Department of Neighborhood and Community Services, along with some key partners, reviewed all of the input and feedback received at the event. They also completed a review of evidence-based and other best practices from across the country. These reviews led to a report that recommended an action plan inclusive of strategies covering the 12 different areas that are seen in this slide. While these 12 areas are not each included as specific strategies within the evolving action plan, the task force is taking care to ensure that they are each addressed within the action plan. For example, resource lists and service planning should include out-of-school time opportunities and transportation needs. The action plan will be explicit in incorporating these community recommendations, even if they were not each addressed individually through today's pretty high-level presentation. The draft action plan will be available for review, hopefully within the next week. It will be shared through the SCIPT email list. SCIPT is the Successful Children and Youth Policy Team, a high-level policy group that first endorsed the idea of developing this plan through a task force. You can sign up for that email list by following the link on the attendance webpage, which is http://bit.ly/ffxattends. Again, bit.ly/ffxattends. That website is listed in that first sub-bullet in the last bullet on this page, on this slide. Over the coming weeks, we'll be seeking out opportunities to get feedback from key stakeholder groups. If you would like us to help reach such groups, whether they're parents, youth, teachers, or anyone else, please contact us. Based on that feedback, the action plan will be finalized for presentation to the SCIPT at its meeting on June the 1st. We will host one more webinar around June the 1st to present the final action plan and information on next steps to implement it. The date and time of that webinar will be posted at bit.ly/ffxattends and will be shared along with all major updates on this work and on other key initiatives on the SCIPT listserv. Again, you can subscribe to that listserv via a link on the attendance webpage. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter at FFXYouthThrive and use the AttendFCPS hashtag to follow the discussion. At this point, we'll take any questions that you may have. And I do have some members of the task force that are on the call as well that we can bring in if we need them to help answer questions. At this point, I don't see that anybody has asked questions, but we'll hold on for just a minute in case anybody does have a question that they would like to ask. Again, you can ask question using either the chat function on your webinar menu or the question function. And I'm not seeing any questions. So at this time, we will end the webinar. I want to thank you again for your participation. Remember to please get involved. Please let us know. We do have a question. We have somebody who's getting ready to ask a question, so give us just a second. But again, please make sure that you get involved. Sign up for the SCIPT mailing list. That is the best way to get information about things that are going on and ways to get involved, additional ways to provide feedback. For those of you who were on the that served on the task force and participated in committees, really want to thank you for your time and your effort towards developing an action plan, which I think is really exciting. We've got some really great opportunities here, great opportunities to really expand the range of individuals and organizations that are involved in this kind of work. Again, this is not just a schools issue. Kids are missing school for a lot of reasons, and there are lots of things that we in the community can be doing to address the issue and promote school attendance. And we think that the developing action plan really takes advantage of those opportunities. Again, the webinar is being recorded and will be posted online on the attendance webpage, hopefully within the next couple of days. And I'm going to wait just one more minute for any questions that might be coming in. Okay, we do have a question. How long is the tiered process and the intervention plan? So my guess is the question is really around how long does it take to implement, or how many things are involved. The implementation, the plan of the tiers, I guess. When you see the action plan come out, it'll really look like a what you see on, for example, the slide up right now. So tier 1. Actually, let's use tier 2 as an example. So there will be the purpose, a target group, and required interventions. So we'll be asking, we'll be saying that somebody at tier 2, so kids who have missed 10 to 19% of school days, so really that's between an average of 1 and 2 days every 2 weeks. How are we addressing it with them? And there will be a set of required interventions, so developing an attendance plan with that student, looking to see if there are screenings or assessments that would be appropriate at this time, and specific referrals. Convening with a multi-agency team. This is not the intensive wraparound type process like within a family resource meeting, but instead kind of regular get-togethers of people from different agencies and organizations, so that you can talk about, we've got a kid who's facing these kinds of problems. Anybody have some ideas? So if so that multi-agency team would be able to provide some, hopefully some help, some direction in working with those individuals. A kid would not move to the next tier unless the attendance problem got worse. So with tier 3, we're defining it as students who have missed 20% or more of school days in a quarter, or cumulatively over a school year. But we'll also be looking at, what are the trends? Was a kid at 19% already, in the first quarter, and then has been attending school pretty regularly since then, and then has gets sick and has a couple of absences in quarter 4. That's probably not going to be significant enough to trigger somebody to move to tier 3. But using these percentages as a guideline for when somebody would move. The idea, again, is to have this general approach that everybody would take, but then a menu of specific interventions that should be applied at that time for that student, based on that individual's needs and their family's needs. So I hope this answered the question. There are any other questions? I'll give you just a couple minutes, and it is right at about 12:30. Wanted to get you out in time so you can get back to your days. I want to thank you again for your time with us this afternoon, getting updated on this work, and have a great afternoon, everybody. Thank you.